Hello dear hiking friends! Today I would like to present you our overnighter we did last September in the Odenwald area in Germany, during which we visited the cave of two robbers called Manfred and Hölzerlip. Not far away from their hideout there is an old historic table and benches made of stone where we had a lovely picnic. Enjoy the presentation. We parked our car at the parking lot Antonslust near the hamlet Geimühle. Then we followed the two yellow blazes that led us directly to the village called Wagenschwend. The first 2 miles of the trail were a steep climb. We started at an altitude of 203 meters and worked our way up to 450 meters. You know that you are on top of the hill when you see a little dreamy hut which children often call a witch's cottage. Then we turned right and followed the trail for another mile until we reached the stone table that one can already see from a far distance, as it is situated in the midst of an open place where various trails cross. On the stone benches one can still recognize the remains of the number 1824 and the coat of arms of the aristocrats whose hunters had erected the table and the benches. It goes without saying that we did not miss the chance to have a lovely luncheon at this historic place. If you follow the trail with a red blaze for about 100 meters northwards, you will soon find the so-called stone house between the trees at the right side of the path. The quaint structure of boulders and rocks is an ideal adventure playground for children, and our dogs also felt fit like a fiddle. The stone house used to serve the two robbers called Manfred and Hölzerlip and their gang as their hideout in the early 19th century. On their widespread raids, they would roam the two forests called Spessart and Odenwald. A raid they did between Heidelberg and Darmstadt was eventually their undoing. In May 1811, they robbed a stagecoach and killed a merchant during the fight. The criminals were tracked down, caught and taken to court, where they got the capital punishment. They were publicly beheaded in Heidelberg. The robber Manfred, whose real name was Philipp Friedrich Schütz, was an interesting character. He could read and write, a skill that was not granted in those days. He also had a creative vein. He is said to have composed songs and written texts that tell about the life and hardship of the common people and the robbers. He wrote a few lines on the wall of his cell that are a rhyme and therefore difficult to translate. The gist of his short text is that they actually weren't criminals. They just could not stand hunger and hardship anymore, which was the result of them being exploited by rich aristocrats. They were virtually forced to commit crimes to stay alive. The German writer Georg Büchner wrote a few well-known political texts some 20 years later, in which he denounced the social wrongs of his time. These texts started a movement that led to the German Revolution in 1848, which unfortunately failed. The intellectual robber Manfred maybe was a bit early and had maybe chosen the wrong means to change something. After our luncheon and a refreshing nap, we tackled the second half of the trail. Our aim was to reach the camping site in Limbach-Krumbach before dusk. Having followed a trail called Luisensträßle for some time, we left the woods. We hiked through the village Wagenschwend on the country road and reached the camping site soon after. we were happy and content and pitched our tents. After a very rainy night, we had an early start to hike the same way back. A trail called Steinbuschweg led us back to the village Wagenschwend. On the way, we discovered quite a many creative trailblazers. On one of the pictures, you can recognize that the moss on a tree trunk has been shaved away to get enough space for a fitting blaze. The beautiful meadow orchards we passed through are worth mentioning as well. Very big and very old apple trees, as well as very bushy plum trees with delicious fruits, stood at the left and right side of our trail. Unfortunately, nobody seemed to harvest the fruits, as we saw hundreds, maybe thousands of apples scattered all over the ground. We had the impression that our way back was a bit easier, as we did not have the steep climb anymore and would continuously hike downhill. Anyway, we reached our car at 3 p.m. and drove home. Thank you for watching this presentation. Maybe it has encouraged you to do a similar hike as well. Should you like it, I'd be glad for a thumb up or a subscription of this channel. Take care and toodaloo, your Klaus.